Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and in today's video I'm going to tell you guys how I plan to push Lake of Kalandra to its limit at League Start to make as much currency as possible. So if you're interested in getting some cash at League Start, this is the video for you. In a fresh league, there is nothing that will increase your earning potentials more than understanding the new league mechanic that you'll be getting in every single map for free. So let's dive in and break it down bit by bit. First things first, make sure to check out the trailer and the explanation on Lake of Kalandra for the basics. Chris does an excellent job of breaking down exactly how everything's going to work, and this video assumes you understand that. We're going to dive into the advanced stuff and the min-max territory exclusively. Lakes of Kalandra are certainly going to be more profitable than your average map, especially early on in the league. So having access to as many of them as possible is our #1 priority. Every map you run, you will be offered anywhere between 1 to 3 different game board pieces. And the biggest board we've seen is a 5x5, with the maximum amount of tiles we've seen being 16. With the average amount of play, you can see that you get around 2 per map, and it would take you roughly 8 maps to complete a full tablet with maximum tiles that we've seen so far. Pretty fast. With that understanding, it's pretty clear that Lake of Kalandra is a speed mapping kind of mechanic. You want to prioritize picking layouts that are as fast as possible for your build. Stuff like Canyon, Ashenwood, Mesa, Wastepool, all fantastic picks for this league mechanic in the end game. And in the early game, you want to be looking to kind of churn through your maps as fast as possible and get into as many lakes as possible. In addition to that, you should be looking to couple your Lake of Kalandra farming with league mechanics that don't take up too much time. Stuff like Ritual and Blight are gonna make it so you're not getting as many lakes as other players or as much profit from the free mechanic you're getting in every single map. Prioritize stuff like Essences, Harbinger, the new Harvest. These are all fantastic accompaniments for the new league mechanic. There are 4 different categories of game board pieces that are presented when constructing your lake. The first of which is the generic monster type tile. These add stuff like chaos monsters, cold monsters, etc. And the reward for completing these tiles placed on your lake is a generic reward chest. Now this one particularly is going to be incredibly powerful in my opinion at League Start. Generic rewards offer stuff like miscellaneous currencies, chaos orbs, fusing orbs, etc., but also offer a myriad of rare item drops. Now, rare item drops are particularly powerful in the very, very early stages of a league, not only for identifying yourself, but also for the chaos recipe. Getting the first few chaos to get your character rolling is essential, and I think doing generic monster tiles early on in white and yellow maps is going to be a fantastic way to get your initial currency going and also get a few chaos recipes done, and is also a great alternative to doing stuff like Endless Heist instead. The second type of tile are league mechanic tiles. Now, there seems to be a tile for each specific league mechanic that is present on the Atlas passive tree. Stuff like Bestiary, Delirium, it's all there, and does seem to be accessible on the Lake of Kalandra tablets. One thing we don't know is if you can have multiple of a single league type on a single Lake of Kalandra. Can I have 4 different essence nodes on my lake? Can I have 5 harvest types on my lake? These are things we don't know yet, but will heavily impact how powerful Lake of Kalandra is in the end game. The ability to cherry pick 5 different essence tiles on one lake is absolutely crazy and will be very, very sought after if it's potentially possible. Now, in addition to that, you can also amplify league mechanics using the difficulty scaling mechanic with placing them further away from the entrance. This is going to be a massive deal, and I imagine we're going to have to come up with a tier list for each of the league mechanics and determine which are going to be the best. However, there's a ton of league mechanics which, in my opinion, have very specific positioning rules which will apply to them. For example, Delirium needs to be placed very close to the entrance, as you won't want to pop a Delirium mirror at the end of your Lake of Kalandra encounter. You'll want to have that always at the start. Similarly, you'd want all of the juiciest ones like Harvest and stuff like that at the very end to get as much loot multiplier as possible from the difficulty bonus. The third tile type is the Kalandra specific reward type, and in my opinion this one is almost always an auto pick, and you should always place it as far away from the entrance as possible, as the multiplier on the actual mirrored items gets amplified the higher the difficulty of the encounter. So if you're trying to get maximum stats and maximum mirror juice, you need to place it as far away as possible. And the reason it's so powerful is the base mirror Kalandra kind of reward here is going to be giving you new base ring and amulet types, and the one we've seen so far is completely absurd. Having a good roll on one of those new bases is going to be big money, and in addition to that, the one where you're able to customize the item you put in yourself is basically akin to a double corrupt temple, and I imagine it's probably going to demand a reasonably steep price for people trying to go for very coveted amulets and rings with really crazy insane stats. So making sure that you acquire these whenever possible, getting the rings, getting the amulets and selling them, and then getting the actual lakes themselves with the specific tile which allows you to modify the items and selling it is going to be big money. The final tile type is the ability to manipulate the game board itself, 4 of which we already know how they work. Each of these are going to be incredibly impactful and important every time they show up, and you may even want to use refresh tokens which you can acquire through the mechanic to try and fish for each of these different outcomes to really take your board to the next level. Each of these options is basically all focused on increasing the difficulty of the board and increasing the distance from the entrance of your best rewards wherever possible. The first and most important ones of these tiles is the ability to swap the entrance with an empty tile. There has been many boards presented in the announcement where the entrance is actually in the middle of the path. Moving this to the start or the end is a massive increase in the potential rewards you can expect. So this is definitely something you're going to be looking for pretty frequently overall. And an interesting gameplay tip here is that you should always leave the end and the start of the Lake of Kalandra open so that you can potentially move the entrance there to drastically increase the distance of the lake from, any given point and reduce the backtracking potential of the lake as well. Next up is swap a reflection with another reflection. So basically moving tiles around. This is going to be particularly useful when you move the entrance and you want to move and substitute some tiles to make sure it's all perfect. Or if you place a tile in the wrong place, it could also be useful. Definitely not the most 100% mandatory one, but it is definitely a reasonably good quality of life if you need to shuffle some stuff around. Next up we have destroy a tablet. This one is particularly useful in breaking up big blocks of tiles so that you can create a snaking pattern again to increase the distance from the entrance. And lastly we have here probably one of the most powerful manipulating ones right next to the entrance movement is swapping a water tile with an empty tile on the map. This allows you to essentially again basically fully edit the map in question and really create a big snaking long maze. With these options and the access to them through rerolls, you should be able to create an incredibly difficult lake fairly consistently in the end game and really get all the rewards where you want them to go. Leaving specific areas of your lake unoccupied and until last is probably going to be a really important strategy to ensure that you can use all of these options in the best way possible and really craft the most optimal path you can. The longest path possible on a Lake of Kalandra is 16, giving you a difficulty of 16 on that last tile if everything and the stars align. This is the kind of board you want to work towards if possible. It's not always going to be realistic, but getting something similar to this or getting a big snake going on will be the aim of the game. So we understand how to get the most lakes possible, how we're going to use it to make big bank in early game with Kiosk Recipe and getting some bubblegum currency, as well as a pretty good idea of how to make some crazy big lake chains in the end game. So what information are we missing? What is the science that is required? First and foremost, we need to understand if you can have multiple of a lead mechanic on a single lake. There is a massive difference between power stacking 7 or 8 harvests on a lake and only being able to have one. In the former, it's going to be one of the most most busted league mechanics of all time, and in the latter, it's going to be just, powerful. Next up, we also need to understand what degree the actual mechanics are present. Chris Wilson has said they're amplified and more powerful than normal. What does that mean? Are we going to get things on the level of the Atlas passive tree or even higher? It's going to be interesting to find out. Next up, we need to understand exactly what difficulty does in terms of scaling rewards, and that is definitely going to be a difficult thing to figure out. If we put a harvest all the way at the very end of a chain as a 16th slot, is it going to be significantly more powerful than one at the very start? That is a very good question, and those ultimately are the things we need to answer. In addition to that, we'll also have to test each and every one of the league mechanics to understand and construct a tier list of the very best tiles that you should always pick without exception, and you should re-roll for wherever possible. And that is going to be what's going to be doing to decide how profitable Lake of Kalandra is going to be and what the overall strategy is going to be as well. If you guys enjoyed this breakdown, a little bit of a teaser of what's to come, make sure to like the video, and if you're enjoying the content, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and if you want more, come check me out over on Twitch. We're trying to do some daily live streams over there. Until next time, cheers.